I checked the attic vents every night. I had to. It started as a habit, then a ritual, and finally, a survival mechanism. My house is old, the kind of old that feels like it's holding its breath in the dark, waiting for you to exhale so it can take its turn. Every night at 11, exactly 11, I'd take the stepladder from the laundry room and walk to the center of the upstairs hallway. I'd look up at those slatted iron vents, the ones meant to let the house breathe, but I wasn't worried about the air. I was worried about the things that travel through it. The silence in the hallway always felt brittle, like thin glass, waiting for a scream to shatter it into 1,000 jagged pieces. I'd stand there, listening to the house settle, the wood groaning like old bones, the wind whistling through the eaves, but beneath it all, there was a rhythm, a slow, steady, wet thumping. The first night I noticed something was off. It was just a scent, not dust, not wood rot, but something sweet, sickly sweet, like rotting peaches mixed with wet hair and a hint of copper. I stood on the top step of the ladder, my flashlight beam cutting through the dark, and I peered into the slats of the hallway vent. I expected to see cobwebs or old insulation. Instead, I saw a reflection. Not a mirror, but a wet, black surface that blinked. I nearly fell. My heart hammered against my ribs like a trapped bird, my breath hitching in my throat. I told myself it was a raccoon, or maybe a stray cat that had found a way into the crawl space. But raccoons don't have eyes the size of dinner plates, and they don't whisper your name in a voice that sounds like grinding gravel. I stayed on that ladder for what felt like hours, the light trembling in my hand, waiting for that eye to move again. It didn't. It just watched me, Julian. That's what it said. Just once. A rasping, wet sound that vibrated the metal of the vent, sending a chill down my spine that I can still feel in my teeth. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in my bed with every light in the house on, watching the ceiling, listening to the scuttle, the slow, deliberate drag of something heavy moving across the joists above me. It didn't sound like an animal. It sounded like a man walking on his knuckles or a giant insect pulling its belly across the wood. I tried to tell my wife, Sarah, but Sarah has been gone for 3 months, or that's what the police report says. Missing, presumed wandering. I keep thinking she's just hiding, that she's playing a game, but the attic vents don't play games. I remember the way she used to look at the ceiling, how she'd say the house felt crowded, even when we were alone. By the 3rd night, the smell changed. It was iron now, blood and cold copper, and the smell of a machine that's been running too hot. I climbed the ladder, my hands slick with sweat, my pulse thundering in my ears. I shone the light through the vent in the master bedroom right above our bed. I saw a piece of fabric caught in the iron slats, a scrap of yellow silk, Sarah's favorite scarf. It was torn, and it was stained with something dark and oily. I reached up to pull it down, but a long gray finger poked through the gap. It was thin, with 3 joints and a nail that looked like a shard of obsidian. It stroked the metal, then pulled the scarf back into the dark with a sudden, violent jerk. I scrambled down the ladder, my breath coming in jagged gasps, my mind reeling. I'm not crazy. I know what I saw, but the more I look, the more the house feels like it's shifting, like the walls are getting closer and the ceiling is getting lower. The house used to be a sanctuary, but now it's a cage. I started checking the vents in the kitchen, the vents in the bathroom, even the small one in the basement. Every single one had that same smell, that same wet, rhythmic breathing. I stopped going into the master bedroom. I moved a mattress into the living room. But even there, the vent above the fireplace watched me. I could hear them whispering at night. Julian, Julian, help us. It was a chorus of voices, some sounding like Sarah, some sounding like my mother, some sounding like people I've never met. They weren't coming from the attic. They were coming from the pipes, the ducts, the very marrow of the building. I tried to leave. I tried to walk out the front door, but the handle wouldn't turn. I tried the windows, but the glass was as hard as steel. The house had locked its jaw. Yesterday was the last night I checked. I walked to the hallway vent, the stepladder groaning under my weight like it was pleading with me to stop. I didn't use the flashlight this time. I didn't want to see what was behind the iron, but I couldn't help it. I looked up and the vent was gone. Just a gaping rectangular hole in the ceiling, dark and hungry, like a missing tooth in a rotten mouth. I could hear the breathing now, deep and rhythmic, like the house itself was snoring in a deep, drug-induced sleep. "She's here, Julian." The voice was clearer now, coming from the hole. It sounded like Sarah, but the pitch was wrong. Too high, too melodic, like a bird imitating a human cry. I reached into the hole. I don't know why. Maybe I just wanted it to be over. Maybe curiosity is just a death sentence in a house that's hungry. My hand met something cold, something soft and strangely damp. I pulled, and a lock of hair came away in my fingers. Blonde hair, tangled with attic dust, and something that felt like spider silk. Then the hand grabbed me. It wasn't the gray finger this time. It was a human hand, small and delicate. The hand of someone who used to love me, but the grip was like an industrial vice. It pulled me upward with a strength that defied physics. My head hit the drywall. The ceiling cracked and crumbled like dry bread. I was looking into the attic now, but there was no floor, no rafters, just a vast black sea of insulation and eyes, hundreds of them, thousands all blinking in unison, a galaxy of terrified watching pupils. I saw her then. Sarah was there. She wasn't standing or sitting. She was part of the wall. Her skin stretched over the rafters, her veins integrated into the wiring of the house, her eyes wide and glassy, looking at everything and nothing. She wasn't dead, she was just expanded. Her mouth was a vent, her ribs were the joists. Her heart was the furnace in the basement. She looked at me, and her mouth opened, wider than a human mouth should, peeling back until it reached her ears. "Check the vents, Julian," she whispered, and then she started to laugh. But the laugh didn't come from her throat. It came from the vents in the kitchen, then the living room, then the basement, a localized metallic echo of her madness. The house is alive. The vents are its mouths, and I've been feeding it my attention for weeks. And now, it's time for the main course. I'm not on the ladder anymore. I'm in the dark. I'm part of the joists. I can feel the wood growing through my skin like splinters that never stop. I can feel the pink fiberglass insulation filling my mouth, my lungs, my stomach. It's warm in here in a way that makes you want to scream. I'm checking the vents from the other side now, looking down at the hallway, looking down at the man who used to be me. He's standing there, holding the flashlight, looking up with a face full of hope and terror. He thinks he's investigating. He thinks he has a choice. Poor Julian. He doesn't know that he's already been digested. I reach down, my fingers elongated gray with obsidian nails. I want to tell him to run, but my voice comes out as a rasping, wet sound. "Hey!" I say, but all he hears is the grinding of gravel, the sound of a house hungry for a guest. I see the terror in his eyes, the way he wobbles on the stepladder, and I realize the loop is closed. I've always been in the attic. I've always been the thing I was afraid of. The iron slats are the only thing keeping us apart, and the iron is starting to rust. I can feel his heartbeat through the floorboards. It's so fast, so delicious. Soon he'll reach for the yellow silk. Soon he'll find the hole, and then we can be together, a family of rafters and dust. I checked the attic vents every night. I had to, until yesterday. Now I just wait for someone to check me. My heart hammered against my ribs, a sound like heavy rain on a tin roof, and the cycle begins again. I watch him go back to the laundry room. He's putting the ladder away, his hands shaking so hard he drops it. The sound echoes through the house, a sharp, metallic bang that makes me flinch. I can feel his fear. It's like a spice in the air. He goes to the kitchen. He pours a glass of water, but he doesn't see the rusty sludge at the bottom. He goes to bed. He turns on the light. He stares at the ceiling. He thinks he's safe because the lights are on. He doesn't know that I can see through the light. I can see through the drywall. I can see through him. The yellow silk scarf is still in my hand. I'll leave it for him tomorrow in the bathroom vent. A little gift, a little crumb to keep him coming back, to keep him climbing the ladder until he's high enough for me to reach. The house pulses. A slow, deep thud, thump. It's the sound of the furnace, or maybe it's Sarah's heart, or maybe it's mine. It doesn't matter anymore. We're all the same pulse now. The air is getting sweet again. That smell of rotting peaches is filling the hallway. It's a beautiful night to breathe, to stretch, to expand. I can feel the neighbors in their houses. I can hear their vents whistling. I wonder if they check theirs too. I wonder if they're waiting for the sweet smell to start. I hope so. It's lonely in the attic. Even with Sarah, we need more joists, more ribs, more eyes. I'll see you at 11. I'll be behind the iron, watching, waiting, blinking. I checked the attic vents every night. I had to until yesterday. My brother has been dead for no. That's a different story. This is my story, and it has no end. I remember the day we moved in. The sun was shining. The house smelled like fresh paint and possibility. Sarah was so happy. She laughed when the floorboards creaked. Character, she called it. If only she knew character is just another word for hunger. The house didn't want us to live here. It wanted us to be the house. It started with the small things, a missing key, a draft that wouldn't go away, a shadow that stayed a second too long. We thought it was just an old building, but old buildings have memories, and memories need to be fed. I can feel her memory now, the way she felt when the finger first touched her, the way she felt when the ceiling opened up. It wasn't fear at the end, it was relief. The relief of finally belonging somewhere. I'm looking down at him again. Julian is crying now, soft, muffled sobs into his pillow. He's calling her name. Sarah, Sarah. I want to answer him. I want to tell him she's right here, that she's the very roof over his head. But I have to wait. The ritual must be followed. 11 o'clock. The ladder, the vent, the eye, it's the only way to ensure the transition is complete. The house is demanding. It needs the terror to set the wood. It needs the grief to seal the cracks. I'm becoming very good at being a house. I can feel the rain on the shingles. It tickles. I can feel the cold wind against the siding. It makes me shiver. I'm a 3-bedroom colonial with a secret in the vents, and I'm so very hungry. I check the attic vents every night. I had to, because if I didn't, the house might forget I was there, and I'd disappear into the walls without a trace. But I'm not worried about that anymore. I'm not going anywhere. I'm the air in the ducts. I'm the dust on the rafters. I'm the reason you don't like to go into the hallway at night. I'm the reason you keep looking up, even when there's nothing there. I'm the reflection in the vent, the black eye that blinks when you least expect it. Everything is dark. Everything is slatted. Everything is Julian. I'll see you tonight. I'll be waiting for the ladder. I'll be waiting for the light. I checked the attic vents every night. I had to until yesterday, and now the vents are checking me. Wait. The ladder is moving. I can hear it dragging across the floor. It's not 11. It's only 10:30. He's early. He's coming for me, or he's coming for the scarf. I can see his shadow on the ceiling, a small, trembling shape. He's setting up the ladder. Clink, clink. He's climbing. I can hear the wood groan under his feet. I can smell his sweat. It smells like copper. He's reaching the top step. He's looking up. He's not using the flashlight. He's looking right at me. Sarah, he whispers, and I lean down. The iron slats pressing against my face. I open my mouth, my beautiful, wide mouth, and I give him exactly what he wants. I give him the truth, and the truth is sweet, like rotting peaches and wet hair. I checked the attic vents every night. I had to. Until yesterday, when I finally became the vent. The loop is closing. The fire is coming. No, the house is closing. The vents are closing. I can feel the metal fusing. I can feel the world getting smaller, tighter, just a series of slats and shadows. I'm the whisper in the dark. I'm the reason the silence feels brittle. I'm the reason you're checking your vents right now. Don't worry, I'm not in yours yet. But I'm in this one, and Julian is almost here. I can see the top of his head, his thinning hair, his pale skin. He's so close. I reach down. I stroke the iron. I blink, and I wait for him to look up. I check the attic vents every night. I had to until yesterday. My brother has been dead for 6 days. No, I am the house. I am the vent. I'm Julian, and I am waiting. Blue light. No, iron light. Iron light. Slats. Darkness. End. I check the attic vents every night. I had to. It started as a habit, then a ritual, and finally a survival mechanism. My house is old, and I am the house. I checked the attic vents every night. I had to. My heart hammered against my ribs, a sound like heavy rain on a tin roof. Until yesterday. Blue bubble. No iron bubble. Slats. End. The first time I heard it, I was standing at the kitchen sink, rinsing out a coffee mug. It was a Sunday, late morning, the kind of quiet that only happens in a house where two people have learned each other's rhythm so completely that silence feels like furniture. She was behind me, chopping something, onions, I think, and she was humming 6 notes, slow. A little off-key on the 4th one that she couldn't quite find it. I didn't turn around, I just smiled. My wife hums when she's happy. She always has. In the 8 years we've been married, I've heard her hum through laundry, through taxes, through a miscarriage, through her mother's funeral. Humming is how she stays tethered. But I didn't recognize the song. That was the only strange thing. At the time, I said, "What is that?" She said, "What's what?" "The song. You're humming it." She laughed, a small, confused laugh. "I wasn't humming, honey." I looked at her over my shoulder. She was holding the knife flat against the cutting board, half an onion sweating under the blade. Her face was open, unbothered. She wasn't lying. She wasn't teasing. She genuinely didn't know she'd been humming, so I let it go. We all do things we don't notice. I drum my fingers. I clear my throat. She hums. Fine. Except she did it again that night. We were in bed. Lights off. She was turned away from me, her breathing settling into that long, slow pattern she has just before sleep. And underneath the breath, almost inside it, were those 6 notes. Same 6 notes. I lay there a long time, listening, trying to place them. I have a good memory for music. I played trombone in high school. I still listen to more albums in a month than most people do in a year, and I couldn't find this melody anywhere in my head. Not a commercial, not a hymn, not something her mother used to sing. Nothing. I told myself I'd ask her about it in the morning. I forgot. That's the thing I keep coming back to. I forgot. For almost 3 weeks, I forgot. And she kept humming. The second time I really noticed was at a grocery store. We were in the cereal aisle, and she was reaching up for a box on the top shelf, and she was humming it right there in public, and a little boy in the cart next to us started crying. Not fussing. Crying. Real fear crying. His mother looked embarrassed and wheeled him away fast. My wife didn't notice. She got the cereal. She turned to me and said, "Ready?" I said, "You were humming again." She said, "Was I?" She wasn't defensive. She was curious. A little amused, maybe, the way you'd be if someone told you you'd been tapping your foot. "What's it sound like?" I tried to hum it back for her. I couldn't. I stood there in the aisle with my mouth open, and I could not reproduce those 6 notes. I could remember that there were 6. I could remember the feeling of them. Slow, a little crooked, a little sad. But when I tried to push them out of my throat closed. The first note came out wrong. The second didn't come out at all. She watched me, patient, waiting. I said, "Never mind, it's silly." She said, "Okay, weirdo." Kelly went to check out. In the car on the way home, I tried again, alone, radio off. I concentrated as hard as I've ever concentrated on anything, and I tried to hum the song my wife had been humming 10 minutes earlier. Nothing came out. Not wrong notes, not approximations. My mouth would not make the sound. I told myself I was tired. I started keeping track after that. Not obsessively, just noting. A little tick mark in my head every time I heard it. Folding towels in the laundry room. Humming. Washing her face before bed. Humming. Standing at the bedroom window at 4 a.m. She, in her nightgown, looking down at our street. Humming. That one I did not ask about. I just watched her from the doorway. She didn't know I was there. Her back was to me and her shoulders were relaxed and her voice was so soft you'd have to be close to hear it, and I was close. I stood there for maybe 2 minutes listening to those 6 notes cycle over and over, and then I went back to bed, and when she came back in, I pretended to be asleep. In the morning, she didn't remember getting up. I asked, casual buttering toast. "Did you sleep okay?" she said, "like a rock." "Why?" I said. No reason. The truth is, I didn't want her to know I was watching. I don't know why. That bothers me now, looking back. Why didn't I just say, "Hey, you were at the window at 4 in the morning humming a song I've never heard. Any idea what that was about?" Why didn't I? Honestly, I think I already knew the answer would be worse than the question. I tried to record it. This was week 4, maybe 5. I'd started carrying my phone with the voice memo app open, ready to tap. I'd sit across from her at dinner, and she'd be cutting up chicken, and she'd start, and I'd reach under the table and hit record. I did this maybe a dozen times. Every recording was silent. Not static. Not a faint hum buried under room tone. Silent. Like the microphone had been turned off. I checked the phone. I tested it on my own voice. It worked perfectly. I could record myself clearing my throat, the refrigerator's compressor, the dog 2 houses down. I could record her talking, laughing, chewing. I could not record her humming. I changed phones. I used an old digital recorder from my desk drawer. I balanced a laptop on the dresser one night and I recorded 6 straight hours of her sleeping. In the morning, I scrubbed through the whole thing. I heard her breathing. I heard a truck pass outside. I heard myself roll over once and mumble. I heard the house settle. I heard nothing that sounded like her voice. But I had been awake at one point in the night. I had been awake and I had heard her humming it inches from my ear. The recording was silent at that exact timestamp. I checked twice. I sat at the kitchen table that morning and I didn't drink my coffee. I just looked at it. The surface of the coffee was very still. I thought, I am losing my mind. And then I thought, no, that's the easy thing to think. That's the thing I want to think. Because if I'm losing my mind, then she's fine and we're fine, and I just need a doctor. The harder thing to think is that I'm not losing my mind at all. I want to tell you about something that happened when we first started dating. This was 12 years ago. We were in her apartment. She was making me dinner for the first time, trying to impress me, and she burned the garlic and the whole kitchen filled with smoke, and she panicked and ran to open a window. The window was stuck. She stood there yanking on it, smoke curling around her, and she was laughing this embarrassed, exhausted laugh, and I came up behind her to help, and I put my hands on the window above hers, and just a second, she leaned back against me and she said very quietly, "Don't let me do it again." I didn't know what she meant. I thought she meant the garlic. I said, "It's okay. First dates are stressful. The garlic doesn't matter." She laughed and shook her head, and we got the window open, and I never thought about that moment again. Until week 5 of the humming. Week 5. I was lying in bed next to her, and she was humming in her sleep, and I thought, very clearly and without warning, "Don't let me do it again." I haven't slept well since. I called her sister. This was a thing I did not want to do. Her sister and I have never been close. She's older by 6 years. She lives 3 states away, and there has always been something between them that I was not invited into. A held breath. An unspoken agreement. I called her on a Tuesday afternoon from my office. I said I had a weird question. I asked if my wife had ever, when they were kids, hummed a particular song that no one else seemed to know. The line was quiet for a long time. Then her sister said, "How long has she been doing it?" I said, "About 5 weeks." Her sister said, "Is she sleeping a lot?" I said, "More than usual, yeah." Her sister said, "Is she standing at windows?" I did not answer for maybe 10 seconds. I couldn't, she said. "You need to listen to me very carefully. I want you to get in your car, and I want you to come here, right now, today. Leave her a note. Say you had a work emergency. Don't tell her where you're going. Don't tell her I called." I said, "What is happening?" She said, "I'll tell you when you get here, but you need to leave before it gets dark." I looked at the window of my office. It was February. It was already getting dark. I said, "I can leave tomorrow morning." She said my name. Just my name. Very softly, she said, "Please, tonight." I didn't go. I want you to understand why I didn't go. I want to understand it myself. It's because I loved her. I love her. Past tense, present tense, doesn't matter. I sat in my office and I listened to her sister's voice getting tighter and more scared, and all I could think about was my wife alone in our house, in her gray sweater, slicing vegetables at the counter, humming, and how wrong it would feel to drive away from her in the dark without saying where I was going. I told her sister I'd come in the morning. Her sister said, "Then don't sleep tonight. I mean it. Don't sleep. Whatever happens, keep your eyes open until sunrise." I said I would. I didn't. The bed next to me was empty and cold. Not recently. Gotten up cold. Cold like she hadn't been in it in hours. I could hear the humming downstairs, much louder than usual. Not louder in volume, louder in presence, like it was taking up more of the room than sound is supposed to take up. I went down the stairs in my bare feet. I did not turn on any lights. She was standing in the middle of our living room, in her nightgown, facing the front window. The curtains were open. The streetlight outside was throwing a long, pale rectangle across the carpet, and she was standing right in the middle of it, and she was humming, and her eyes were open, and she was not blinking. There was someone on the other side of the window, not a person. I want to be clear about this. It was not a person. It was roughly the shape of a person. It was standing on our lawn, in the place where you'd stand if you wanted to look into our living room, and it was humming back. The same 6 notes. A second voice. Harmonized. I have been trying for a long time now to describe what the thing on the lawn looked like, and I can't. Not because it was too horrible, because my eyes would not hold it. I would look at it, and I would look away, and I would not be able to remember what I had just seen. Like my brain was a wet paper bag and the image kept tearing through the bottom. But I remember the humming. I remember it was a duet. I remember my wife raised her hand and pressed her palm flat against the inside of the glass. And the thing on the other side raised its hand and pressed its palm flat against the outside of the glass. And they matched. I don't know what I did next. I know I didn't scream. I know I didn't grab her. I know I stood there for what felt like a very long time. And then at some point I was sitting on the floor of our bedroom with the lights on, and it was 7 a.m. And she was asleep beside me in the bed as if she had never left it. I don't remember walking up the stairs. I drove to her sister's house that afternoon. I left the note. I did not wake my wife. Her sister opened the door before I knocked. She had been crying. She didn't say hello. She led me to the kitchen and poured me a glass of water and sat down across from me and said, "When she was 9, she went missing for 3 days. I said, "She never told me that." Her sister said, "She doesn't remember it?" She told me that in the summer of 1997, her little sister, my wife, walked into the woods behind their grandparents' house and did not come back. Search parties, dogs, news vans, nothing. On the 3rd day, she walked out of those woods at dawn, barefoot, dry, warm, unharmed, humming a song that no one in the family had ever heard. Her sister said, "She hummed it for about a month, and then she stopped, and she never did it again, and we never talked about it, and I thought we were done." She looked at me across the table. Her eyes were very tired. She said, "Whatever followed her out of those woods has been waiting 29 years. She said, "It's not calling her, she's calling it back." I did not go home that night. I got a motel room off the interstate. I sat on the edge of the bed with my phone in my hand for 6 hours. I called her around midnight. She picked up on the first ring. She sounded completely normal. She asked how the work trip was going. She asked if I wanted her to save me dinner. I said yes. She said, "Drive safe, honey." And then, just before she hung up, so softly I almost missed it, she hummed the first 3 notes. Into the phone, slow, a little off-key on the 3rd one, like she was teaching it to me. I drove home in the morning. She was in the kitchen. She was making coffee. She was wearing her gray sweater, and her hair was still wet from the shower, and she smiled at me when I walked in, and she said my name, and she handed me a mug. She asked about my trip. I told her it was fine. She kissed me on the mouth. Her lips were warm, and underneath her breath, so quiet it could have been anything, so quiet I could almost pretend I didn't hear it. She was humming. 6 notes. I smiled back at her. I took the coffee. I said it was good to be home. That was 4 months ago. I still haven't told her what I saw at the window. I don't think I ever will. Some nights I wake up and the bed is empty and I hear the duet downstairs and I lie very still and I wait for it to end, and it always does, and she always comes back and she always fits herself against my back like she's always fit herself against my back, and she hums me back to sleep. The worst part isn't the humming. The worst part is that I've started to recognize it now. The melody. Those 6 notes. I can hum them. I hum them when I'm doing the dishes. I hum them in the car. I hummed them this morning into my coffee without noticing, and she looked up from her phone and she smiled at me. Really smiled, warm, pleased, like I'd finally remembered an anniversary. And she said, "There you go, honey." She said, "I knew you'd learn it eventually."